Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, very, very dramatic developments are now taking place across Iran, especially in its capital, Tehran, where the mullahs now, who have crushed that country, repressed it, really mismanaged it over the last 47 years, are now facing the greatest challenge to its existence since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Over the last several weeks, protests have now erupted in city after city, town after town, even in villages across Iran. The primary cause initially was the economy. Inflation is out of control. Their currency has collapsed. It has completely collapsed. Prices are skyrocketing. People are unable to get bread, meat, basic necessities. They're running out of electricity and water. The regime's mismanagement, its inability to provide even the most basic services, has now finally caught up to the Ayatollahs. And so what began as an economic protest over the last 2 weeks has now morphed into a massive political protest that threatens and challenges the very existence of the regime. And the regime now is lashing out. What they have done over the last 4 to 5 days is nothing short of barbaric, absolutely barbaric. They have cut off all internet services, all telecommunications, all phone services, so people can't use their phones to videotape the atrocities that are taking place. But the Ayatollahs, the mullahs, have now given a green light to their thugs, enforcers, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they are now with tanks, AK-47s. They are now massacring unarmed, defenseless freedom fighters, civilians, protesters who are on the streets of Tehran and other cities, who are simply protesting their economic hardship, demanding now a change to the regime, saying that they want human rights, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, pure freedom, that they want the right to be able to speak, to assemble, free speech. In other words, they want to be free. They want to end the yoke of Islamist tyranny that has been oppressing them for the last 47 years. And in the wake of this massive challenge, the mullahs now it is a bloodbath. The mullahs are massacring people. The death toll unofficially is at over 500. Officially at over 500. However, people now are coming out saying the estimates are closer to several thousand. 10,000 Iranians have been arrested, these freedom fighters, and many of them now are going to be executed summarily over the next couple of days. Children are being murdered. Women are being murdered. Innocent unarmed men are being shot in the head and in the neck, almost at point blank range. Tanks are being unleashed onto the streets where they are running over protesters. And President Trump now says Iran has crossed his red line. On Friday, President Trump issued a statement of moral support to the brave Iranian people on the streets, saying, America stands with you. I stand with you. Unlike Barack Hussein Obama, when the people of Iran rose in 2009, the so-called Green Movement, the pro-democracy movement, Obama abandoned them. He refused to support them even rhetorically. He propped up the Iranian mullahs, and they were able to crush that mass democracy, mass freedom movement. This time, Trump is saying, not on my watch. And so he warned the mullahs that if they start to shoot protesters, he will then say, as he put it, we will then start shooting at you. Meaning he will then use potentially the military option and take military action, whether it be missile strikes, airstrikes, maybe even putting American boots on the ground. Listen now to President Trump on Air Force One. Asked, you said if the regime started to resort to murder and firing on their own people, that would be your red line. They have now crossed it. What do you plan to do? Roll cut to Mike.
Sir, on Iran, have they crossed your red line yet to trigger a response?
Well, they're starting to, it looks like, and there seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. But we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
Okay, the White House now has told the media, and they've also told the Iranians and the world, that President Trump now, as I speak to you now, is considering multiple potential military options. He would like to resolve this diplomatically. That's his first choice. I don't blame him. He doesn't want to get us involved in another war, in another regime change war. Iran is a big country. It has 70 million people. It has a navy. It still has a fairly formidable military. And the fear now is not so much that they could destroy our forces or defeat the United States. They can't. It's that by forcibly overthrowing the regime, it could lead potentially to a civil war within Iran, which would then have millions of refugees, destabilize the region. And so they're trying to avoid that. They would like the Iranian people to overthrow the Ayatollahs themselves. And in particular, what Trump is hoping to do is to put so much pressure on the regime, economic pressure, political pressure, cyber pressure, that covert pressure, that the regime leadership begins to crack, the military decides not to shoot on its own citizens, and the Ayatollahs are then overthrown from within, and then there is then a successor government. Lying in wait is the son of the Shah, the late Shah that the Ayatollahs overthrew in 1979. He is known as the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi. Pahlavi has now become a rallying point for many of these pro-democracy, pro-freedom fighters who are now on the streets of Iran. He is the Crown Prince. He says that he has a plan to bring Iran back to its feet, to unleash investment, have it re-enter the world market, restore economic stability and prosperity. He wants Iran to become not a dictatorship, but a constitutional monarchy, in which after about 6 months, should he come back to power, they will transition to elections, a parliamentary democracy. Women will have full rights. Human rights will be restored. The right to a free press, the right to freedom of speech, the right to freedom of assembly, the right to freedom of expression, and of course, not one mosque will be touched. He has promised the Iranian people, including the very religious hardliners, no one will take away your mosques. You will be free to worship as you please. He now is waiting in exile to come back to Iran. And so the question now is, what should President Trump do? How far should he go? He has already now imposed a trade embargo on Iran, a massive sweeping trade embargo. He is tightening the sanctions even more. He has now told the world that should any country trade with the mullahs now, they will be slapped with a 25% tariff if they do business with the United States. So he is now putting the economic screws into the Ayatollahs. I think he needs to do more, and I hope he does more. I think he should also provide covert support to these protesters. They are unarmed. They are defenseless. They are being slaughtered. Body bags are everywhere. We need to start arming these protesters. We also now need to give them access to the internet. Starlink is now being restored, or Elon Musk is helping to bring in Starlink so the world can see what is happening and the Iranian people can talk and communicate with the outside world. And then the final choice. Should we start bombing key targets within Iran? That is now the question. Should we hammer the Ayatollah? Should we hit the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps? Okay, my friends, President Trump now put down a red line. The Iranian mullahs have now crossed that red line. And now the question is, what will Trump do? He says he's looking to maybe make a deal with the Ayatollahs. Privately, they have reached out to him to maybe negotiate their nuclear program or negotiate maybe some kind of a peace agreement between Iran and us or Iran and Saudi Arabia. For my honest opinion, I don't buy it. I don't believe in it. I think they're just buying time. I think they're stalling. I don't trust the Ayatollahs. They are now clearly on the ropes. And they fear that their fate will be that of Nicolas Maduro. And so they're playing for time. And what they have done is they deliberately imposed a blackout on the country, an internet blackout, a communications blackout, phone service, everything. So in the cover of darkness, they can begin their slaughter campaign. And that's what it is now. It is a slaughter of innocent, unarmed protesters. I call them freedom fighters, pro-democracy activists, real pro-democracy activists who are finally trying to overthrow the Islamo-fascist regime in Tehran. And so body bags are now everywhere. There's a story of a 26-year-old woman. She was a fashion designer. Her dream was to become a fashion designer in Milan, Italy. That's where the action is, if you're into fashion, that in Paris. And the mullahs ordered their thugs to execute her at one of these protests. They shot her in the back of the head at point-blank range. She was put in a body bag. Her family had to go to the local morgue and go through dozens and dozens of other body bags of young people, young men, young women, all between the ages of 18 and 22, until they were finally able to identify their beloved daughter. These stories now are coming out of Iran over the last 3 to 4 days. The symbol of the protests, and this woman is incredibly brave. I don't know if you've seen the image. It's a very powerful image. It has gone viral, not just here in America, but around the world. She is 23 years old. She is not wearing a hijab. She has taken her hijab off. Obviously very symbolic. She is wearing makeup. And then she's holding up a picture of the Ayatollah. She lights the picture of the Ayatollah with her left hand. And in her right hand, she has a cigarette. And she lights her cigarette with the burning picture. And it's obviously very powerful. The symbolism is rich. Down with the Ayatollahs, burn the regime down. But also, I want to smoke. I don't want to be forced to wear a hijab. I want to be able to wear makeup. I want to be free. The mullahs now are vowing that they will capture her. And as they put it, they will make her pay. They're vowing to rape her, torture her when they find her, and then murder her. So there is now a bounty on this poor young woman's head. This is one of the many stories now that is emerging from what is happening in Iran over the last couple of days. Now, my advice to President Trump, you have the mullahs now on the ropes. The people have decisively turned against the Ayatollahs. You have the people desperate now for any kind of assistance. They are unarmed. Now, as Reza Pahlavi said, the Crown Prince, we don't need American boots on the ground. The protesters, the Iranian people themselves, we are the boots on the ground. But what they desperately need is covert reinforcements, weapons supplies to be shipped in, access to the internet, pressure building on the Iranian regime, economic pressure, trade pressure, political pressure. And then above all, and this is now what Trump is discussing with Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and his entire national security team. Should he now launch a barrage, a devastating air missile campaign against the regime, and which targets do you hit? You don't want to hit civilian targets. A, you don't want to kill more innocent people. B, you don't want these strikes to then turn the Iranian people against us. So you want to hit clear regime targets that will paralyze and debilitate the regime, weaken the regime, paralyze the regime. So the protesters, and there are millions of them now on the streets, can overwhelm the Ayatollahs. President Trump, in my view, working with our allies across the region, using the air bases that we have, should do a repeat of what we did in the summer. Not just hit Iran's nuclear program, but also hit the headquarters of the Ayatollah, hit the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, target their leaders, hit them with bunker-busting bombs, devastating Tomahawk missile strikes. In other words, let this regime now feel pain and punishment, and tell the regime we will continue to bomb their military targets and their political targets, day and night if need be, from the air, until this regime is toppled. Enough is enough. When you start gunning down innocent protesters, and thousands are now believed to be dead, with many more thousands to come, if this is all the regime has to offer, is to shoot its own people, America and the world cannot stand by and allow the mullahs to escape their inevitable destiny with history. Their regime is over. Their time is over. And if we should topple the mullahs, it will be a geopolitical earthquake akin to the fall of the Berlin Wall. It will reshape Iran. It will reshape the Middle East. It will reshape the world. Okay, should the United States militarily intervene to help the freedom protesters topple the Ayatollah regime in Iran? Or should we stay out of it? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the death toll now is at least 500 dead. That people think that's very low. Estimates are now coming in. It's in the thousands. Protesters are being brutally mowed down. They're being slaughtered. They are defenseless. They are unarmed. The regime is sending out their thugs and enforcers with AK-47s, tanks, and they are just indiscriminately shooting people. Apparently, hospitals, not just in Tehran, but in cities all across that country, are filled with people either dead, bleeding, shot, wounded. Over 10,000 have been arrested, many of them already being tortured. Others are going to be summarily executed. It is a bloodbath that is unfolding in front of our eyes. And yet, with every bullet that they fire, with every person that they kill, with every shell that they launch against innocent civilians, more and more Iranians are coming to the streets. And there have been a lot of protests over the last 30-some years against the Ayatollahs. This one, at least to me anyway, feels different. It seems much more determined, much more concerted. There is a sense of hope and optimism and grit that there wasn't before. It seems much bigger than any previous protest. We are looking at millions upon millions of people taking to the streets. And it's not just limited to the big cities. This is now challenging the regime supposedly in their strongholds, in the villages, in towns, in rural areas. So this is by far the most dangerous, greatest challenge to the regime since 1979. Now, listen to President Trump, because these are the words now that Iranians are looking to him for, the world is looking to him for, and now the question is, will he follow through on his own pledge? Here is the red line that President Trump drew when he warned the Ayatollahs: don't massacre or shoot your own protesters, because if you do, then the United States is going to come after you. Roll cut 6, Mike.
I tell the Iranian leaders, you better not start shooting, because we'll start shooting too.
And so the question now is, the regime is resorting to mass murder and slaughter to try to crush their people and remain and cling to power and remain in power. The question now is, what should the president do? 617-266-6868. This is the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi. He was on CBS. And here is how he describes what is taking place in his country. He is in exile. The people, however, are clamoring for him to come back. Roll cut 9A, Mike.
They are using military equipment from armored tanks to AK-47 to shoot demonstrators to death. It's a massacre that the regime is, as a last gasp effort, trying to use to intimidate people because of being very thin in their troops, as a last gasp effort. But Iranians are resilient despite what the regime is trying to do. However, the most obvious question is, are we alone in this fight, or will this time the world respond to this brutality and come to their help and assist them to make sure that this time they will win, and this regime, which is on the verge of collapse, will finally concede and end this atrocity?
You know, imagine just for a second that the regime, the mullahs do collapse, that this anti-Semitic, anti-American, terrorist regime, the greatest sponsor of terrorism in the world, finally falls from power. Can you just imagine how different our world would look like? How different the Middle East would look like? How different the region would look like? How different the world would look like? We wouldn't be constantly living under the threat of Islamist nuclear terror, the fear that the mullahs will one day acquire the bomb and then, God forbid, use it on Israel or use it on us or fire it upon Europe. That this regime, which is a cancer on the Middle East and a cancer on the world, by far the greatest exponent of Islamic terrorism and Islamic extremism, that this regime would finally be vanished from the face of the earth. It's just, again, it's like the fall of the Berlin Wall. It would be an earthquake. It would be the reverberations, the geopolitical reverberations would be felt all over the world. And look, it's clear now. They have run the economy, forgive me, they have run the economy into the ground. They lost their war with Israel. Hamas has been broken. Hezbollah has been defeated. The Houthis have been smashed. All of their terrorist proxies have now been essentially swept into the dustbin of history. The Ayatollah's military now is cracking. Their nuclear weapons program, thanks to Donald Trump, has now been eliminated, or at least for the foreseeable future, it has been irreparably damaged. The prestige of the regime is gone. It has no more economic strength. It has very little military strength. The people no longer fear it. Its aura has now been shattered. And then the one thing they didn't count on, because every time the Iranian people have risen up, every single time, whether it was under Joe Biden or previously under Barack Hussein Obama, the United States has abandoned them. Obama turned his back on them. Biden turned his back on them. Now President Trump sent a message through Truth Social that every single protester has now received. America stands with the protesters. Trump stands with the protesters. As Trump put it, I have your back. America has your back. And what this has now done, it has given such a boost of energy. It has so morally nourished and renewed the Iranian people that now it appears that their will to see this thing through to the end is so fortified. The mullahs now are worried, they're desperate, and they want to cut a deal with Donald Trump. Listen now to the Iranian crown prince again, Reza Pahlavi, saying the difference maker this time is President Trump. His political support, his moral support, his inspirational leadership, his pressure campaign to break the mullahs economically, diplomatically, geopolitically. He has weakened them now to the point that the regime is teetering. And now it's time for the Iranian people to give the final push. Roll cut 12A, Mike.
I think President Trump is responding to the call that the Iranian people have. The Iranian people have heard his words. They are naming streets after him in Iran. There's a difference. They know he's no Barack Obama or Joe Biden. And that's why they do have a higher expectation, and we'll see what happens. And as you say, I think the president has a decision to make fairly soon. We're doing what we need to do regardless of whether help will come or not. I'm just stating that the best way to ensure that there will be less people killed in Iran is to intervene sooner so this regime finally collapses and puts an end to all the problems that we are facing. We are at war, and we have to make sure that we are victorious.
Okay. You've heard the Crown Prince. You've heard the Kuhner man. I want to hear from you. President Trump now says he is strongly looking at military options to help topple the mullahs in Tehran. The regime now being blasted from all around the world for its absolute brutal crackdown on a massive pro-democracy demonstrations that are taking place and have erupted all over that country. 617-266-6868 is the number. 650 on the great WRKO. Trump has now drawn a red line, and now the mullahs have crossed it. What should Trump do, if anything? Jerry in the great state of Louisiana. Thanks for holding, Jerry. You're going to kick us off, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning, Jerry.
It's really interesting, but, I'm thinking about this. I had a great friend that was from Iran, one of the best people I ever met in my life. And, it's interesting because we're the police for everybody else in the world, and we don't stand up for the people that really need some help. And here's my opinion. Where's NATO in all this? They criticize us consistently for not involving ourselves, and they're all upset about Greenland and this and that. But let's go help some people that Oh, and by the way, how did we get here? The red line that Barack Obama drew in the sand was a bunch of billions of dollars on pallets that we sent over to Iran that made them what they are today. And, where's the criticism? I don't hear the press coming out on any of this. These people need help. And I say, you know what, Jeff? Let's go in and help them.
Well, Jerry, I can only piggyback off of what you're saying, my friend. Look, Obama gave them not just billions of dollars in pallets, but it turns out in terms of sanctions relief, economic deals, unfreezing their assets, he gave the mullahs over $100 billion. And that's what gave them their economic lifeline for the last 10 years. And they used that money to fund Hamas, to fund Hezbollah, to fund their terrorist proxies, to wage war and try to build up their nuclear program, their missile program, and their nuclear weapons program over the last decade. And this is one of the reasons why they're protesting on the streets, because the Iranian people are saying, while you guys were waging war abroad, while you guys were unleashing terrorism and trying to build up a nuclear bomb, we're starving, we're suffering. Bread is too expensive. Meat is too expensive. Unemployment is at 60, 70%. The currency it's worthless. It has no value. We're poor. We're hungry. We're starving. And so they have so run that country into the ground that people are now desperate. They have no other option but to go to the streets and protest. And to me, what is sickening, Jerry, is that the mullahs would have been gone a long time ago, except it was Obama and the Democrats that propped him up. It was Obama and the Democrats that gave him an economic lifeline. It was Obama and the Democrats that gave them the billions and billions and billions to fund Iran's terrorism and its nuclear weapons program. And I think that's why the media now has been largely silent on this issue, because they realize now Obama's plan to empower radical Islam is coming undone. His plan to give a nuke to the Iranians, to give them the bomb, is now coming undone. Everything he did was to aid and abet the spread of radical Islam, and Trump is the anti-Obama. He's undoing Obama's destructive, disastrous legacy, piece by piece, here and abroad. And look, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to take much. This is a regime that's, as I said, it's teetering. One good push, and the whole thing comes crashing down. Jerry, thank you so much for that call. And look, let me just say this, because this needs to be said. To all the liberals and the Democrats who listen, and there are many of you who do listen, shame on you. I'm telling you to your face, shame on you. How many years now have you been protesting on behalf of Hamas and on behalf of these radical Palestinians, Jew haters, anti-Semites who want to destroy and wipe out the state of Israel? Yet where are you now? Where are you now when a bloodthirsty, tyrannical regime, a mortal enemy of America, a mortal enemy of the West, a regime that enslaves its own people, that oppresses women, that throws gays and lesbians off of rooftops, that is now slaughtering, massacring innocent, unarmed protesters, civilians, like dogs on the street? Where's the New York Times? Where's This is CNN? Where's MS Now? Where are all these far left activists? Where's AOC? Where's Bernie? How come the campuses aren't shaking and quaking with protests against the mullahs? Have you noticed? You see, if Israel is involved in a war, then the streets are full. Then the campuses are erupting. Then they're blocking traffic. Then the media, it's saturation coverage with these Israel-obsessed liberals. But God forbid, if it's an actual fascist regime, a radical Islamist regime, a regime that's been at war with America since its inception in 1979, then when they're doing the killing and the massacring and the jailing and the imprisoning, then suddenly nobody wants to hear about it. Suddenly we're all blind, deaf, and dumb. Suddenly AOC is silent. Bernie is silent. Chuck Schumer is silent. Kamala's silent. Hillary's silent. Obama is silent. Everybody's silent. Have you noticed that? Suddenly now, how come I don't see protests on the streets of the Boston Common? On the streets of Boston at Boston Common. How come I don't see New York City, Chicago? How come I don't see them everywhere as I did when the Israel-Hamas war was being waged? You phonies, you frauds, you. 18, 19, 20-year-old brave young men and women, innocent, many of them university students, defenseless, are being shot in the neck, in the head. They're being run over, literally run over by tanks. You have these barbarians, the Basij, which is the fascist paramilitary of the Iranians, with AK-47s, just mowing them down. And your silence is deafening. What this proves, beyond the shadow of a doubt, however this thing ends, is that the Democrats, the media, and the liberals don't give a damn about human rights or democracy. And what the Iranian people, and this is what the media is not telling you, what they're chanting now on the streets, all over Tehran, all over major cities, all over Iran, is USA, USA, USA. What they're chanting is Trump, Trump, Trump. As the Crown Prince said, they're already starting to rename squares and streets after Trump because they've been inspired by him. Because for the first time, we have a president who's not turning his back on the Iranian people. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent out in Pittsburgh. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Hey, good morning. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year. All the best to you and your family, Dave.
You too, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, let me tell you something, okay? Like the song that Russ used to play, bomb, 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 Iran. Now's the time to do it, Jeff. Now's the time to show these people that we're sympathetic to them, that we love them, and it's the American way, and it's not a long-lasting war like under the Bush administration, Jeff. And you know what, Jeff? I got to give it to the CIA. The deep state is almost gone out of the CIA. They need to be kicked to the can. I saw the post-Venezuelan op. The CIA actually did a good job for once, you know. But here's the thing, Jeff, in Iran, they should have been taken over years ago. And I think the Mossad needs to play a part in this too, Jeff, the Israeli intelligence. They're, of course, they're the ones that gave us all the intel on the bombing of their nuclear facilities, Jeff. And God bless Mossad.
Well, Dave, look, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, I think it's time to decapitate the regime, okay, to put it in political parlance, to put it in political terms. The Ayatollah has to go. He doesn't want to go. There are reports now that if he has to go, he will go to Moscow. The Russians are willing to take him, but he is desperately clinging to power. I think it's time for the CIA and Mossad to do an operation to take out the Ayatollah, to take out the president of Iran, to take out their top generals. It's time now to just wipe out the head of the regime. You know, you take out the head and the body will fall. Look, there's no love for this regime. Let's be very clear. This regime is despised and hated. The only thing is, so far, what's keeping it afloat is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the military is still willing to shoot on their own citizens. But once the military says, no, I'm not going to shoot on my own people, then this thing is over. And that's why I think we need a push. I'm not saying put American troops in there. Absolutely not. I'm not saying we occupy the country. Absolutely not. We don't need to. There's such massive, overwhelming opposition to the mullahs. And you have the Crown Prince. We have a leader waiting. He's a humane man. He's pro-American. He wants peace with Israel, and not just with Israel, peace with everybody, with the Saudis, with the Sunnis. with peace with everybody in the region. He will abandon Iran's nuclear weapons program. He wants to rebuild his country and make it respectable again. He wants to bring in business and investment and trade. He wants to see women be free. He wants to see human rights restored. He wants to see a transition to parliamentary democracy. He wants Persia to be great again. Persian civilization, Persian culture, the great Iranian people to flourish again. They've been ruled by a bunch of medieval barbarians, frankly, savages, for the last 47 years. And look, they're our number one enemy. I've been saying this now, along with China, obviously. This is a regime built on hatred and destruction of America. They call us the Great Satan. It's death to America. That's what this regime stands for. So, you know, if they're on the ropes, let's help the Iranians put in the final knockout blow. And look, I'm telling you, it's not just Israel. The Saudis want them gone. The Qataris want them gone. Kuwait, I mean, everybody. Turkey wants them gone. Everybody wants them gone. The whole region wants them gone. So I think we can leverage that and say to everybody, you all do your part, and let's finally do the world a favor and take out the Ayatollahs. My question to you, Dave, is this. If it comes to push comes to shove, and Trump makes the decision, and apparently he's very close to making a decision, to now launch a massive missile and bombing campaign, where he is going to hit the headquarters of the Ayatollah, where he is now going to hit their nuclear program again. He's going to hit their key military installations. He's going to hit the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Will he have the support of the American people, and will he have the support of Congress? I think the Republicans will back him, but will the Democrats? Or will they stab him in the back again? What say you, Dave?
I think some of the more moderate Democrats, like my Senator Fetterman, will help him, as he has, of course, Fetterman's pro-Israel. And I agree with you 1,000%, Jeff. But, Jeff, can I make just one point on an unrelated subject
Yes.
that I've been wanting to tell you?
Yes, go
Jeff,
ahead.
Here's what Trump needs to do is, and I don't mean to change the subject. Forgive me, Mike and Sandy and you. But here's the thing, Jeff. Trump needs to federalize the Minnesota National Guard, or else, God forbid, something's going to happen between ICE and the troops. Because, Jeff, I got a lot of friends that were in the Minnesota National Guard, and I got a friend that's an ICE agent in that area. There are some people, Jeff, you want to talk about a quagmire. There are some people that are weekend reservists in the National Guard and are also ICE agents. So where's their loyalty going to lay? I believe the loyalty is going to lay with the president, Jeff.
Oh, I agree with you. And look, Dave, I'm going to get into this in about maybe half an hour or so. But it's a tale of two countries and a tale of two cities. Look at Iran and look at Minnesota. Okay, the United States, but Minnesota and the United States. Look at Tehran, the city. Look at Minneapolis. Here you have, in Tehran, just stand back for a second, some of the bravest, most courageous people you will ever see. They're facing a real dictatorship, real tyranny, real repression, real fascism, Islamofascism. And look, I mean, to go out on the streets just to protest takes an immense amount of courage because they're being shot at. I mean, with AK-47s, they're tanks now rumbling on the streets of Tehran and firing shell after shell. They're getting run over by tanks. The body bags are everywhere. You got to read the horror stories now that are coming out. Families are in disbelief. They're trying to identify their young daughters or sons who are being butchered. And they're going through hundreds of body bags, other young men and women saying, no, this is not my daughter. No, this is not my son. Trying to find, I mean, we're talking thousands of dead and counting. And yet they're willing to brave bullets and shells and tanks for their very freedoms. And then you have these idiots in Minneapolis who are playing the role of quote-unquote freedom fighter against ICE as they stand there and protest against the the lawful shooting of a radical anti-ICE activist who is obstructing a legitimate law enforcement operation. And these are people now that have blocked traffic. They're now destroying property. They're rampaging in hotels. They're attacking ICE agents. They're throwing rocks, bottles, objects. They're kicking them. They're punching them. I mean, it's bedlam and mayhem. And nothing happens to them, by the way. I'm going to play cuts. You got to see this. Nothing is happening to them. They're a bunch of spoiled brats who have nothing better to do with their lives. And yet, right, you know, on the one side of the screen is these idiots chanting F you to ICE and law enforcement. And on the other screen is the people of Tehran who are literally being shot in the head because they want to be able to eat. They want to be able to have basic freedoms. They want to no longer live under Islamic fascist tyranny and dictatorship. The contrast is so clear. Honestly, I almost feel embarrassed. These people are fighting for real freedoms. In Minneapolis, they're looking to sow more chaos, anarchy, and tear down law enforcement. So I'm completely with you, Dave. It is an insurrection. It is sheer defiance. It is a rebellion. And the question now is, the local police, the state police, who are they loyal to? Are they loyal to the United States, or are they loyal to the radical Marxist anti-American left? That's the question now. And we're going to find the answer out in the next couple of days. Dave, thank you so much for that call. Barbara in Maryland. Thanks for holding, Barbara, and welcome.
Thanks for taking my call, Jeff. Thank you so much. I'm a tax professional, and in my head has been buried in all the new stuff that's coming out right now from that big, beautiful bill. And today is the first time that I actually turned on this radio to listen to you, and I'm so glad that I did, because I went to college in 79, and with so many Persian people that were coming over here because they were running for their lives. I have such good friends that are celebrating President Trump and his decision right now, and I'm one of those people. I am behind them 100%. They are great people. They're not like the others. Many of the people that I know can't even go back to visit because of the circumstances when they left. Some of them even still have, these, I guess they would kill them if they went back there to see family and all of that. I am so happy President Trump is doing what he's doing, everything that he's doing. And in Minneapolis, I can't wait for them to just purge all of those crooks out of there. I think Waltz is going to jail. That is my hope, that he is going to be jailed. And I know that it can happen because they put Blagojevich in jail, and they put with that other guy, I think it's Fitzpatrick in Detroit, went to jail. So I know that this guy can go to jail along with a lot of other people. And I'm just so happy about what President Trump is doing. I don't understand these people that is out there in the street protesting. It needs to stop. It's an embarrassment to even see all these Americans, and I think they're paid. I think they're all paid protesters, and some of them are just lunatics. But they need to arrest them. And it's unfortunate what happened to the woman that got shot up there. But, she put herself in that position to go out there, to think that you've got freedom, that you have the freedom to go out in the street and to protest when you have no reason to be protesting. And they don't. They have no reason to be protesting what ICE is doing. They're trying to get all of these people out of this country, and there shouldn't be any protests against it. I think that the Democrat Party they're complete lunatics in their position.
Oh, Barbara, I agree with you, not 100, but 1,000%. And, when you ask the Iranian people, what are you protesting for? And, you hear these women saying, I don't want to have to wear a hijab. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so let me ask you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Is U.S. military intervention in Iran regime change or a stand for democracy? As you know, Trump is now seriously considering multiple military options. Could even go as much as boots on the ground. I don't think he will do that. But definitely a bombing campaign, maybe devastating missile strikes against the Ayatollahs, against the regime, against some of its key military targets. So if the United States was to intervene militarily, is it in order to foster A, regime change, or is it B, a stand for democracy? I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. And yes, again, last night, very active on X. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHNER. We are now living through very, very historic times, both here at home, no question, and what's now happening around the world. And I don't want to keep repeating myself, but it bears repeating. If the mullahs should fall, if this brutal Islamist regime that has destroyed Iran and run Iran since 1979, the Islamic Republic, as it's called, should it fall, it would, to me, be very similar in terms of its effect and consequences to the fall of the Berlin Wall. Not just for Iran and the Iranian people, but for the Middle East and for the world and for the United States. So the question now is, with the regime on the brink, with millions of protesters taking to the streets, with thousands of them now being massacred, with over 10,000 of them being arrested, with the world's eyes on Iran, should the United States bomb the mullahs and take out their leaders? Yes or no? John in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Jeff, I'm just wondering, what is it that the CIA does these days besides kill or try to kill American presidents? Because it seems like these people should not be unarmed, and that's their job, to smuggle in weapons and give training to these people, and yet they don't seem to be doing anything. And yeah, we do have to go in because we're going to have zero credibility if we don't get in there and do something. And no boots on the ground, but we could just take out some of their infrastructure, and I'm sure the Israelis would be more than happy to join in on that. And that was some weapons in the hands of the people, and this is over pretty quickly. It was only a few short months ago that the Republican Guard was reported to have fled the country, the Air Force was flown out, and the Ayatollah was in hiding, and we let the pressure off, and this is the result right now. So, yeah, we got to get in there, Jeff.
John, I agree with you completely. Let me just ask you it's kind of a different question, but I'm just interested in hearing people's take on this. When you see the risks that the Iranian people are taking, the bloodshed, how you just go out on the streets and you're dead. You're being shot at. You're being arrested. Women are being deliberately raped. These stories are now coming out. Women are being raped in prison. These are young women in their 20s. Many of them are university students. They want to have women's rights. They don't want to be under Islamic law and Islamic oppression anymore. They want to be free. And for this, the mullahs are, retaliating savagely. And so they've given the orders now to their enforcers. When you arrest them, make sure you rape them in jail, to really break them and humiliate them. So when you see reports of this kind of savagery, and yet you look at what's happening in Minneapolis, where it's nothing but freedom. You're free to protest. You're free to vote against the Republicans. You're free to vote against Trump. You're free to express yourself. And yet they're going around blocking traffic, attacking ICE, shutting down Minneapolis over the fatal shooting of a woman who was deliberately impeding and obstructing a legitimate law enforcement operation in defense of some of the most violent illegal alien criminals. When you see how they're behaving in Minneapolis compared to what we're seeing in Tehran, I'm just curious, what's your reaction, John?
Well, that woman getting herself shot foolishly was the best gift the media could have got off the front page. I mean, they couldn't have asked for more. And that's all they're using here about us.
Good. That's a very good point. Very good point. John, thank you so much for that call. You know, to me, it's like, here you have real freedom fighters in Iran and what it means to be a real freedom fighter. And then you have people who are playing freedom fighters in Minneapolis. Clowns, buffoons, agitators, vigilantes, insurrectionists. Frankly, many of them look to me, frankly, unhinged, insane. And to me, that's the difference. One, they're play acting freedom fighters. The other ones are real freedom fighters. Carlota in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Carlota, and welcome.
Jeff, it's Carlotta. Good morning.
It's Carlotta. I'm sorry.
Yes,
I have okay. Carlota on the board. Okay, Carlotta, please go ahead.
You know, I believe the reason for all this rest, when the dust settles and the history of this time is written, is that we used to have a middle class, a working class, a this class, or that class. Now we have a class of people who live in this country who are entirely supported by government grants of one kind or another. And the number is so large, and they are responsible for up is down, down is up, right is wrong. They just are supported by the government to commit suicide. The government is committing suicide.
You know, Carlotta, I think you're referring to the professional paid protesters, correct?
Yes, but there are much more of them than we're aware of.
Oh, you're right. There's an army of them. In fact, I've been getting emails, Carlotta, just in, and please hang on, I want to come right back to you because we're up against a break. In Boston, they're on Craigslist. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the Iranian regime now on the brink. President Trump now says he is seriously considering using the military option. We will have a decision, he says, within the next day or two on whether the United States will intervene militarily. My question to you, do you support the United States bombing the mullahs, bombing the regime to topple it and allow the protesters to essentially overwhelm the Ayatollahs and bring back the crown prince and end the rule of the mullahs once and for all? 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go right back to Carlotta in Rhode Island. Carlotta, do we still have you? Carlotta, forgive me. Carlotta, do we still have you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Carlotta.
So what I'm saying...
Yes, go ahead.
There's a new class of residents, not even citizens, but an overwhelming class of people. And there's no shame to it. They're proud of it, that they don't work. They are entirely supported by one government program or another. That's a new class that has been established in this country.
What do you make of the fact, and I agree with you, these are paid professional activists, agitators, leftists, who are on the payroll, and their job is just to protest full time, and they ship them city to city to city, cause to cause to cause. It doesn't matter. Palestinians, ICE, Donald Trump, impeachment. It doesn't matter. They just keep recycling the same ones. What do you make of the fact, though, Carlotta, that they're not protesting on behalf of the Iranian people. That's the one cause they're not protesting on behalf. They're not protesting against the mullahs. Why is that? What's your theory?
Don't have a thought of their own. They don't protest against something they've thought about, but what is the direction of the day? Who should you protest against? What should you protest against? What are you for? What are you against? It's just the same party line. It's not like they wake up thinking, what's wrong in the world today? What can I do to make the world a better place? It's what does Mamdani think? Or what does Barack think? You know, the people who do not have the best interest of our country in mind.
Nailed it. You nailed it. Carlotta, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, look, she's completely right. They're basically the paid shock troops, the paid activists of the Democratic Party. So whatever the Democratic Party line is, so if you're for the Palestinians, then you roll them out. If you're against ICE, you roll them out. If you want to impeach Donald Trump, you roll them out. If you want to call for Kristi Noem to be hanged, as they did just a couple days ago, you roll them out. So it's whatever the Democratic Party wants, their cause du jour, as the French say, the cause of the day. And it's obvious. They want the mullahs to stay. Obama wants the mullahs to stay. Biden wants the mullahs to stay, however much he thinks. The official line from the Democratic Party is no, the mullahs stay. The ayatollahs stay. So then the protesters don't protest Iran. They're out in Minneapolis creating havoc, wreaking havoc, and running wild on the streets and confronting and attacking and assaulting ICE. That's their job now. Their job is to obstruct and sabotage ICE as they try to arrest some of the most dangerous illegal aliens. 617-266-6868. Tim in South Dennis. Thanks for holding, Tim, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I was just calling you. The first thing that struck me, and you've already hit on it, is just the hypocrisy of the left. I mean, here in Iran, you have people with practically no weapons at all standing up against a regime has no problem sending in tanks, shooting them in the head. Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, here we have people fighting ICE who, unless you either have an ICE warrant or you commit a crime against them, they have no jurisdiction over, the average American citizen. But they're out there fighting to preserve something that the people in Iran are fighting and dying to get rid of. Right here. I mean, if you ever look when they take the cameras around Minneapolis, all the women are in the hijabs, and they don't drive cars, they don't go anywhere without a man from their family around them. If they get out of line, they'll kill them. If you're gay or a lesbian, they'll kill them. We're in Tehran, and look who they always make the example of in Tehran. It's always young girls, whether that 16-year-old from 2009 or right now. They shoot them in the head. They're raping them. I just don't know how the people in the left in this country can stand up and say they're for freedom and anti-fascism. Meanwhile, I believe a bunch of those protesters in Minneapolis went to hotels looking for guest lists. Isn't that what the Nazis did in the 30s?
Oh, Tim, you're on fire. And look, the mullahs now, this current regime, is the leading fascist regime in the world. I mean, this is not even a debate. This is beyond question. It's beyond doubt. This is a regime that is deeply anti-Semitic, deeply anti-American, deeply anti-Western. It is a regime that believes in one-party rule, Sharia law. They are open admirers of Adolf Hitler. They have held conferences denying the Holocaust. They, in fact, they can't quite make up their mind. They either say the Holocaust never happened, or they say they want to finish what Hitler started. It depends what day you catch him. But what I'm saying is that, all these so-called anti-fascists, that you see in places like Minneapolis. Here is a real Islamo-fascist, Islamo-Nazi regime. The real deal. By the way, after the Quran, the second biggest selling book in Iran, and has been for decades, is Mein Kampf. I'm not kidding. It's Mein Kampf. It's Hitler's Mein Kampf. So the Ayatollahs are open admirers of Adolf Hitler. And they've based a lot of their party structure and propaganda around Hitler. And yet, no, they won't protest them. That's good. That's good. And the treatment of women is so barbaric. It is so primitive. You want to talk about a misogynistic, sexist, anti-feminist regime. Iran's is the epitome of it. It's it's a homophobic. You want to talk about, hating transgenders. Ay, ay, ay. In Iran, they shoot you. They throw you off a building if you're transgender. So everything that the left says they stand against, the mullahs embody. And yet now, in their darkest hour, in their most desperate hour, when the people are crying out for freedom, where are they? Nowhere. 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 To me, I'm sorry, it's beyond disgusting. And let me just say one last thing, Tim, because this needs to be said. That young girl, she must be 20, 21 years old. The one that took off her hijab, her headscarf, is wearing makeup, took a picture of the Ayatollah, lit it on fire, and then had a cigarette and, lit her cigarette on the burning picture of the Ayatollah. So rich in symbolism and meaning, is one of the bravest, most courageous people on the face of the planet. And yet, where are the feminists? Where are the Democrats? Where are the liberals? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Please, all of you need to hear this. Okay? You really need to hear this. So, as I mentioned just before the break, the symbol now of this pro-democracy, anti-regime, anti-mullah protest erupting across Iran by the brave Iranian people is a very young woman. We don't know her age. She looks 20, 21-ish, a university student, I would guess, who took off her hijab, her headscarf, wearing makeup, lit a picture of the Ayatollah on fire, and then took out a cigarette and lit the cigarette with the burning picture. And it is so rich in symbolism. Down with the Ayatollah. I'm a liberated woman. I want to be able to walk around without having a headscarf, makeup. If I want to smoke, let me smoke. Let me live my dream. Let me be free. It is incredibly powerful. And it makes it even more powerful because this poor woman may have signed her death warrant. The Ayatollah has personally said she must be murdered and killed. He wants her raped and tortured before she's killed. And so there is a hunt on to murder this poor woman. She is fighting for the most basic freedoms that we take for granted in this country. The freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom to wear what you want, freedom to go to school, freedom to drive, freedom to have a job, freedom to not live in a repressive, misogynistic society that treats women like they're chattel, like they're slaves. A brutal, backward, primitive regime that oppresses not just women, but all of the people of Iran. And then you have what's happening in Minneapolis, where a bunch of professional, most of them paid agitators, political vigilantes, anti-ICE activists, Antifa thugs and insurrectionists. A lot of them, for some strange reason, are women. Women, and I'm sorry, many of them are overweight women, I don't know why, but it just is. Overweight, stupid women who are radical feminists and radical leftists who walk around with bullhorns and are deliberately blocking traffic, blockading roads, stalking ICE, throwing, by the way, this is now the favorite weapon of choice. It's an Antifa weapon where they take a bottle of water. It's frozen solid. So it's like a brick. And they start throwing it at the heads of ICE agents or police officers or anybody they don't like. That, by the way, that could cause brain damage. And they're throwing rocks, frozen bottles, bricks, objects at ICE agents, at ICE vehicles. They're attacking ICE, spitting on ICE, kicking ICE, punching ICE. They are obstructing ICE. They're sabotaging ICE as they go about conducting legitimate law enforcement operations. ICE is now trying to detain, capture, and deport the most violent criminal illegal aliens in Minneapolis. Literally. Murderers, gangbangers, drug traffickers, sex predators, child molesters. That's who they're trying, and Somali pirates, the Somali fraudsters, okay, who are illegal aliens. And this is who they're defending. This is who they're protecting. So think of that poor woman who had the courage, because she may be killed for what she did, and she knew that. But she takes off her headscarf, the symbol of oppression, and she burns the picture of the Ayatollah with her makeup on, and she lights a cigarette. Now, think of a really obese, ugly woman with a big bullhorn going right up to the face of ICE agents, right up to their vehicle, throwing water bottles at them. And listen now to what she says. This is Minneapolis. Roll cut 26, Mike.
Let's see if this is back up. Back you. What'd you eat for breakfast? Look at this. They tried to hit her with the car. Now couldn't have been bacon, right? That'd be cannibals. Back up. Back up. I'm a safe distance. Do you feel safe? You need a new job, man.
Okay, you hear some of the men in the background, but there's a woman with a bullhorn and just going, F you, F you, F you, F you. I mean, that's it. That's all you need to know. This is what's happening now on the streets of Minneapolis. And by the way, they're putting their bodies deliberately in front of ICE vehicles on the road. So as ICE tries to advance on the road, they're trying to conduct an operation. And so they're literally blocking like sort of Rene Good, except they're not even doing it with a vehicle. Now they're doing it with their own bodies. And then they say, you're trying to run us over. You're trying to run us over. No, you're in the way of the cars. You're on the road obstructing them. And you're just throwing bottles at them, frozen bottles, bricks, smashing the cars. Some of the ICE agents are being hit, assaulted, and it's just F you, F you, F you, F ICE, F you, F ICE. That's all you're hearing. Now, I'm going to play a couple of cuts. You need to hear this, okay? Because things in Minneapolis are descending not just into chaos, it's getting out of control. It is really spiraling now out of control. It is a full-blown insurrection. There's no other word to use. This is the boy mayor, that Marxist clown, okay, the guy who kneels in front of Black Lives Matter. This is Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis. Mr. ICE, get the F out of our city. He was on a podcast, and now he's threatening ICE agents, saying that Minneapolis police officers can now arrest ICE agents. Roll cut 20, Mike.
I think the question that you're getting to, which I'm not have not wholly answered yet, is like you're basically asking, can our cops arrest them?
Yeah.
From a legal perspective, yes. From a practical perspective, to state the reality, yeah, it does get kind of hard when they drastically outnumber us and they have bigger guns than we do. It does, and here's the thing, we don't want to create warfare in the street. We want to keep our communities safe. We're trying our very best to do that. So nobody, our police officers, ICE agents, civilians, nobody can act illegally. Nobody can.
Now, he's saying that police in Minneapolis can arrest ICE agents. He's saying the reason why we're not doing it is because we're outgunned and outmanned. They have bigger guns. There's more of them than there are of us. And, so we're going to lose. It's going to lead to street battles, and we're going to lose that street battle. So he's saying almost from a practical, prudent point of view, well, that's why we're not doing it. But what he's saying, and this is what is so dangerous, this is what's pouring gasoline on the fire. This is what's fomenting so much of this hatred and really now this chaos, anarchy, and sabotage. What he's saying is, but they should be arrested. In other words, what he's saying is, ICE is so out of control. This is a modern day Gestapo. They're killing people, shooting people, arresting people. They're out of control. They should be arrested. But we just don't have the firepower and the manpower to do it. He is deliberately delegitimizing ICE. And he's not just delegitimizing them. He is so demonizing and vilifying. If you're one of his supporters and you listen to this, you're like, well, it's like these are all criminals. ICE are a bunch of violent criminals. Rampaging on the streets. The police, our mayor says, should be arresting them. But they don't have the numbers to do it. So, if that's the case, well, then we're going to go on the streets and we're going to confront them. Because now we're not dealing with a legitimate law enforcement agency or a law enforcement operation. No. We are dealing now with an out-of-control rogue agency who are a bunch of criminals who should be arrested. Now, but that's not enough. That's not enough for Fry and Waltz, Tampon Tim. No. It's not enough that they said they're at war with the federal government. It's not enough that they say that they're no longer, they want to kick ICE completely out of Minneapolis, completely out of Minnesota. It's not enough that ICE is illegitimate. No. Listen now to Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota. By the way, the first Muslim member of Congress, a political ally of Ilhan Omar. Some people did something. This is the Attorney General of Minnesota. Listen now to what he said at a press conference. Roll cut 21. Mike.
The deployment of thousands of armed mass DHS agents to Minnesota has done our state serious harm. This is, in essence, a federal invasion of the Twin Cities and Minnesota, and it must stop.
This is a federal invasion? Now notice, when 20 million illegals poured in under Joey, when he allowed them to come in, no. That wasn't an invasion. When all these illegals descended into Minneapolis, that wasn't an invasion. No. But sending in ICE is an invasion? They're an invasion occupying force? They're an invading occupying force? Again, what is this, 1860 all over again? Because that's exactly what South Carolina and then the rest of the South said when Lincoln sent in the troops or federal law enforcement. They said, no, this is an invasion. We are sovereign states. We are now seceding from the Union. We consider this now an invasion. So, I don't know. Maybe I missed the memo. Maybe somebody should tell me this. Did Minnesota now just declare its independence from the United States? I'm sorry. Did the state capital, did they vote to break away from America? Is Minnesota now its own independent country? I must have missed the vote. I'm sorry. Was it when I was away on a cruise during the Christmas break that I missed that? This is a naked now rebellion for the state attorney general to now claim that enforcing federal immigration law and sending in a legitimate law enforcement operations into Minneapolis is a quote-unquote invasion. Well, what do you do with invaders? You shoot them. What do you do with invaders? You resist them. What do you do with invaders? You wage a guerrilla insurgency. You oppose them. Hello? And you won't forget dog whistle. This is a bullhorn. He's telling those thugs on the streets, those anti-ICE activists, that's an invading, occupying body. Those are invading, occupying troops and forces. Take it to the streets, obstruct them, block them, harass them. If need be, shoot them. Listen now. This is Mayor Jacob Fry. He then says, well, if Ellison's going to use the term invasion, at the same press conference, the Minneapolis mayor says, okay, it's an invasion. Roll cut 21A. Mike.
We don't use the word invasion lightly. What we are seeing is thousands, plural, thousands of federal agents coming into our city. And yeah, they're having a tremendous impact on day-to-day life. And it's a negative one. And whether that's kids that are trying to get to school or businesses that are trying to open, that's police officers that are responding to 911 calls. It's just about being able to conduct daily life right here in our city.
Why have they ordered thousands of ICE agents and DHS officials into Minneapolis? Why? Why? For the hell of it? Because they don't have anything else better to do? It's because you have seeded the streets. You have seeded the downtown area to these anti-ICE activists and insurgents. Hey, dude, open your eyes, man. Streets are being blockaded. Boulevards are shut down. Barricades, autonomous zones have been set up. Hotels are being plundered and ransacked. Windows smashed, lobbies torn apart, hunting parties being gathered to go after ICE agents where they sleep. ICE vehicles are being destroyed. ICE agents are being vilified, surrounded, assaulted, attacked. Bottles being thrown. They're being spit on. Every operation, anytime, every raid is being impeded or obstructed or contested by these roving packs of anti-ICE activists and domestic terrorists. You're making their job impossible on purpose because you're coddling and defending the illegal aliens that you've set up in your own city. So, of course, they have to send in more reinforcements because your governor has mobilized the National Guard, but he won't use them to protect ICE. So they have no choice but to now beef up Border Patrol, ICE, and DHS to come in. This is all on you, boy mayor. You're the one, you and Waltz and Keith Ellison and Ilhan Omar, you're the ones that are the architect now of this anarchy and this chaos that has descended upon Minneapolis. Now, this is how bad it's starting to get. Remember I reported on this story, I can't remember now if it was late last week or the middle of last week. Anyway, it was last week, whereby a local Hampton Inn, which is part of the Hilton chain, refused to give service, to provide service to ICE agents, saying you're not allowed to book a room, you're not allowed to use our hotel, you can't sleep there, whatever. And that created a huge backlash. Well, listen now to this. There is now a McDonald's in Minneapolis. McDonald's. And as you know, I'm a big fan of McDonald's. I go about maybe twice a month. In fact, just last night, as I was show prepping, my wonderful Ava walked up to me, gave me a kiss, good night, Daddy. And she said, I've been a very good girl, which she has. Her grades are getting better. She said, Daddy, could you please take me this Saturday to McDonald's? She loves McDonald's. She loves the chicken McNuggets. I said, sweetheart, continue to be good. Continue to do your homework. Let me continue to see your grades go up. I want you to have a good, strong week. Finish strong. If you do that, Saturday, Daddy's taking you to McDonald's. Okay? So I was even going to take my daughter to McDonald's this Saturday. I'm not so sure now. Because now a local McDonald's, this is in Minneapolis, have now put up a sign saying ICE agents are not allowed into the establishment. There is a no ICE sign on the door. And apparently now the policy of that McDonald's is we don't provide service to ICE agents. Basically, no Big Mac for you. No chicken McNuggets for you. No quarter pounder with cheese for you. I want you to listen now. This is a reporter. McDonald's has put up a security guard at the McDonald's establishment to enforce their order, their sign, preventing ICE agents from coming in and being able to order whatever, a Big Mac value meal. Roll cut 24, Mike.
In this McDonald's in Minneapolis, there's a sign on the door that says ICE is not allowed. We couldn't help but notice there's a sign that says no ICE on the door.
Yeah, just to let you know, at the end of the day, this is private property. Mm-hmm. So you can't just break the law because you're a federal agent. It's like coming into your house or coming to any other restaurant. There's rules. So.
Did the manager put that on the door? How did that get there?
I'm not sure, but it's there.
How do you guys enforce it?
They read the sign. You know, at the end of the day, you have all right to come in and make a purchase. It's just there's rules and regulations. You can't just walk behind the counter.
Yeah, okay. Basically, I'm sorry. There's rules and regulations. And what? The rules and regulations are we don't serve ICE? ICE agents? No, they can't now. So what happened? No, I'm sorry. Remember that poor Christian baker? Remember? He didn't want to provide a wedding cake for, I think it was a lesbian couple. And the left went absolutely, berserk. And it wasn't enough to force them to bake a cake. They wanted to bankrupt them. They wanted to fine them. They wanted to penalize them. And they said, no, under civil rights laws, you as an establishment must serve everyone, regardless of your personal beliefs. So what happened now? There's what? You can discriminate against ICE? You mean to tell me now that everyone has to have service except ICE? So now you can literally discriminate against ICE and deny them service? Because they happen to be ICE agents? And is this the official policy of McDonald's? I can't believe it is. I can't. Because I can't believe they would be that stupid to do that. Because I'm telling you, you've kissed away over half the country. So I want to know if this is the official policy of McDonald's. Do they stand by this local establishment, this local McDonald's? Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from my sister, Jennifer, out in Tucson, Arizona. Jeff, when you think of America, usually Coca-Cola and McDonald's comes to mind. I cannot believe this is supported by corporate McDonald's. This local franchise in Minneapolis should lose their franchise license for discrimination against ICE and for being anti-American. Jen, as usual, I agree with you. As Grace says, boy, the two of you, it's like you're always on the same wavelength. She goes, you guys agree on everything. Yeah, pretty much. To me, I think it's a disgrace that McDonald's, at least this McDonald's in Minnesota, had a no ICE sign. You know, whatever. We don't accept ICE. We don't want ICE here. ICE not allowed here. To me, that McDonald's should be boycotted. I agree with my sister. They should lose their franchise license. I can't believe that corporate would support something like this. I just can't believe it. So let me ask all of you, what do you make now of what is happening in downtown Minneapolis? There are now nightly battles between these anti-ICE activists and ICE agents. Frozen water bottles, which are extremely dangerous, they're hard as stones or rocks or bricks, are now being thrown at cars, at vehicles, shattering windows, sending agents to the hospital. They're getting concussions. Tear gas is being used. Smoke bombs are being used. There are clashes now on the streets. They are doing everything in their power to completely prevent ICE or block ICE or impede ICE from being able to conduct any of their operations. It is every day, every night, nonstop, street to street, block to block. What do you make of what is happening in Minneapolis? Should Trump send in the military? 617-266-6868. And are you surprised about this local McDonald's? Is it time to boycott McDonald's? I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. This is from Mark on Messenger. Jeff, if I was an ICE agent and I went to McDonald's and saw a sign like that, I wouldn't even waste my time going in because if they do decide to serve me, they'll probably freaking spit in my food or even put poison in it or something. So you know what? I'll just go to the next place. Well, I got to tell you, Mark, if I'm an ICE agent, yeah, I'd be A, really teed off, and B, I'm not taking a chance. I mean, yeah, you can, I guess, force them to serve you, but can you trust what's in the food? Because I agree with you. They'll spit in it or God knows what they'll put in the food. So this is now what it's come down to. They're now McDonald's is now even being politicized. They're trying to turn McDonald's against ICE and refusing them service. So if you were an ICE agent, what would you do? Would you boycott McDonald's? Should we boycott McDonald's? Joan in West Roxbury. Thanks for holding, Joan, and welcome.
I love you. I listen to you every day. I'm in my 80s, and I guess I can always say, how much time do I have left? But if I do have some time left, I need to speak my mind. Actually, what comes to mind is we're entering the dark ages, and what we're seeing around us is a black plague that's invading our country and our people. We have no media that feels a responsibility to adequately report what's going on. And what I do every day is listen to you, and I listen to the European independent media who are trying, and there are a few people, I'm sure you know who they are trying to have on the ground news of exactly what's happening in these different countries. It is what's happening in Iran. I've been watching that for years. There's been certainly a number of books that have come out over the years by Steve Emerson, and even the one about Not Without My Daughter, about a woman had to rescue her daughter out of Iran, and she gave an extremely important look at what life was like. I've watched that young girl who dared to light a cigarette, a beautiful young woman. I've watched that over and over again. Our countries in the Middle East are all compromised. They've tortured and thrown out many, many Christians. I've watched what's happened in Syria, which continues to happen. People are being slaughtered. This is a prelude to what we're starting to see here. And people have no access or no interest in seeing the news. And these women who are running around following I don't know what the hell they're thinking, but in point of fact, the young girls or women who are in these universities, I think the Muslim men are probably taking their way with these women. I hate to say it. And these guys have no interest in American women whatsoever, because we know in the countries they represent, women are sex slaves, they're abused, they can't speak. In fact, in one Middle East country, I don't know if it was Iran or Afghanistan, where they decided that women can't speak to each other.
That was Afghanistan. Yeah, they can't even speak to each other. 617-266-6868 is the number. Lisa in Dudley. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Hi. Hope things are well. I have a couple things I just want to get in really quick. Do I think that he should send the military? Go ahead. Do I think it will help? Absolutely not, unfortunately. I also believe that as I watch a lot of these people who defend all the insurrection that's going on or all the bad behavior and all the protests that are going on, I can't help but wonder if they're reacting out of fear. Like, the McDonald's guy doesn't put up the sign in the window, it's his business the next to bar. If I don't get out there and stand up for the Somalians, and stand up for the Muslims, is my house the next to get broken into? Like, it looks like they're acting out of fear more than they're acting out of real solidarity behind the Somalians.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. So you think that local owner of that McDonald's in Minneapolis, it's not so much that he's, down with the struggle and siding with the anti-ICE activists and the illegals. It's that if he doesn't virtue signal, if he doesn't put up some kind of a sign showing that he's against ICE, they may target his McDonald's. They may rampage through his restaurant. They may start destroying his windows. They may throw a Molotov cocktail and just burn his restaurant to the ground. So, Lisa, you're saying it's almost like defensive on his part, correct?
And I think for a lot of them are. Like, if I look at the protests as a whole big picture, yes, you have your youngins out there that are just trying to get internet fame, which is, I totally believe that's the wife of the driver of the car was doing, and it just escalated to what it was. But at the same time, if a lot of them are older, and I think they are acting out of fear of they've got so many Somalians there that they can't stop it. It's a simulator. Show that you're assimilating or you become the next victim.
Interesting. Lisa, thank you very much for that call. Well, look, to me, what is it? I'll just play the clips again. Just please stand back. I mean, we're getting all numb to this, which is sad, but that's just the way the world is. This is the Attorney General of Minnesota. By the way, with the full backing of Tim Walz. Okay, full backing of the governor, Tampon Tim. This is Keith Ellison at a press conference with Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, right beside him. Roll cut 21. Let's play it one more time. Roll it, Mike.
The deployment of thousands of armed mass DHS agents to Minnesota has done our state serious harm. This is, in essence, a federal invasion of the Twin Cities and Minnesota, and it must stop.
A federal invasion. He's calling it a federal invasion. Now, he's right after that comes the boy mayor, okay, the Mr. Get the F out of Minneapolis, the guy who's literally siding with the rioters and the insurrectionists on the streets. And he comes out and says, yeah, I'm telling you, we're using the word invasion. Roll cut 21A. Mike.
We don't use the word invasion lightly. What we are seeing is thousands, plural, thousands of federal agents coming into our city. And yeah, they're having a tremendous impact on day-to-day life. And it's a negative one. And whether that's kids that are trying to get to school or businesses that are trying to open, that's police officers that are responding to 911 calls. It's just about being able to conduct daily life right here in our city.
When you start referring to ICE as a modern-day Gestapo, the way Waltz has, as a bunch of SS Nazis, as Frey and Waltz and Ellison have, now as an invading force, you're sowing terror. You're sowing fear. You're sowing trauma. That's what you're seeing. And to me, one of the most shocking, this is what I find most disturbing, are the images, and you're right, Lisa, you're completely right. Many of them are middle-aged. Many of them are in their 60s and 70s, these so-called protesters. With, and the hatred, the fear in their eyes. It's like the madness. Their eyes are popping out of their skull. F you! I hate you! Here, there's an image. She's got to be at least 65. Okay, of a chubby woman, an overweight 65-year-old woman. Honestly, she looks slightly unhinged. And she's standing in front of a nice vehicle, and she's pointing to her face, her chin. And she's saying, shoot me. I dare you. Shoot me. And she keeps pointing at her face. Shoot me. I dare you. Shoot me. And then you have others with the bullhorns. Shoot us. Shoot us. We dare you. Shoot us. I'm like, these people they're like rabid animals. Like, to the point they're like, they look like they're possessed. I swear to you, they look like they've suffered from demonic possession. But that's this is the result of the constant panic porn, the constant hysteria, the constant vilification, demonization, defamation of ICE agents. And I don't know how you can ratchet up the rhetoric now anymore. I don't know. What do you say after Nazis and Gestapo and a federal invading force? Like, what do you say? So they have these people completely convinced now in Minneapolis, or at least a segment of Minneapolis. They have them so terrorized and traumatized. Honestly, I almost feel sorry for them that ICE is going around, boom, and that boom, like we're just shooting people indiscriminately in their cars, abducting people off the streets just indiscriminately. Just, it could be you. You could be sent to a prison in El Salvador. You could be just shot in the head, in the face, for no reason. And these idiots believe it. And it's being fanned, all of this, the flames of hatred and rage and derangement and fanaticism. It's all being fanned by the media, which is spreading lie after lie, by the Democratic Party, and I'm telling you, by this far left, out of control, rogue local leadership. And to me, I think there's no question. They have to sow panic. They have to ratchet up the hatred. They have to be as inflammatory and incendiary as possible, because they are up to their eyeballs in this fraud scandal. They need the blood to flow on the streets. They need the bodies out every night, every day, confronting ICE, attacking ICE, engaging with ICE, pelting ICE with these ice bottles and rocks and bricks. Because if there's an investigation of the fraud, the $9 billion in fraud just in Minnesota alone through these daycare centers and the free lunch programs, Jacob Frey is finished. Tim Waltz is finished. Forget not running for office. He's going to go to jail. Keith Ellison, we got him on tape. He literally told these Somali pirates, these fraudsters, you keep doing what your guy's doing. I'm going to make sure that none of you go to jail. But hey, I scratch you. You scratch my back. So make sure the campaign contributions keep flowing. So they have a deep political incentive now to have Minneapolis be just utterly engulfed in chaos, because that's knocked the fraud scandal right off of the news cycle. And they believe that could be their only way to politically and even personally survive this without going to jail. But they're playing a very dangerous game because they have so inflamed public opinion now that, look, I hate to say it, I think another shooting is going to be inevitable. Either ICE is going to be, you're going to see ICE agents killed, or you're going to see more shootings. 617-266-6860. Is Anthony listening to music, or I don't want to interrupt him if he's on a hot date or something. Okay. Well, look, by the way, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. What you're watching now play out on the streets of Minneapolis, as you're seeing in New York City with now the inauguration of Zohran Mamdani, is the rise of Marxism, communism, collectivism here in the United States. There's no question now. The Democratic Party is now a radical left party. It has been hijacked by the likes of Tim Walz, by the likes of Mamdani, obviously, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Bernie Sanders. It is now their party. And in particular, take Mamdani. When he was sworn in his inaugural speech, in his inauguration speech, he expressly, openly said that the theme of his entire mayoralty is that he wants what he called the frigidity of rugged individualism to be replaced by the warmth of collectivism. The warmth of collectivism. It was an open call for communism. An open call for a Marxist revolution. And not just that, he's then now has appointed a advocate for tenants in New York City. Her name is Sia Weaver. She is an avowed communist, an open communist. Now remember, this is the woman who is running the office that's going to be dealing with landlords, dealing with rental apartments, dealing with tenants all across New York City. And she openly said that as far as she's concerned, private property, home ownership especially, her words, not mine, is a quote-unquote tool of white supremacy. That, in fact, if you own a home, it is a form of white supremacy. Even if you're a person of color, even if you're a minority person, say you're African American, you own a home, whether you like it, whether you know it or not, you're actually furthering white supremacy. And so she is now calling for the collectivization of home ownership, for the collectivization of private property. She wants to abolish private property. And when pressed, she says essentially private property should be gotten rid of completely, and housing should be provided strictly by the state, strictly by the government. And she said in particular, and this is what's really despicable about her comments, is that white families above all must now learn to give up their homes or to share their homes with non-whites or with tenants or with the poor or with the homeless or with illegal aliens. That, in other words, we want to change, as she put it, I'm quoting her directly now, the relationship that people have with private property and home ownership from being an individual right to, quote, being a collective good. And what's this collective good? Your home is not your own. Let other people live in your home, and the state will confiscate the house. We'll let you stay, but you have to open up your house to other people. Now, furthermore, she's now even saying that she wants to abolish rent. Tenants shouldn't pay rent. Well, if tenants don't pay rent, how is a landlord going to stay in business? And if the landlord doesn't stay in business, obviously then they want the state to come in and expropriate or confiscate the property or the apartment or the home of the landlord. And what is to me absolutely incredible is that this is the housing policy of the Mamdani regime here in the United States of America. This is Castroism. This literally is Leninism. It's Stalinism. It's Maduro. It's Chavez in Venezuela. And this is the mayor of New York and his team in the capitalist heartland of the United States, in the financial center of America. Now, it's no accident. Taxpayers are fleeing. Homeowners are fleeing. The middle class is fleeing. Business is fleeing. Florida and Texas have said they can't keep up with the demand because you can see the writing on the wall. But communism is alive and well. By the way, that's the policy of Tampon Tim Walz. That's straight out of communist China. So you've got Tampon Tim Walz in Minnesota. You've now got Mamdani pushing collectivism and abolishing private property in New York City. You've got Karen Bass, a former member of the Black Panthers and a former communist, running L.A. You've got a communist mayor of Seattle. You've got a communist governor of Oregon. And you got to hear at 9:30 what they have planned here in Massachusetts. You think you own your car? You think you can decide how many miles you want to drive in your own car here in Massachusetts? No. Under the radical Democrats now in the state legislature, they're about to take a big step towards green communism. A massive step. And we have to defeat that bill because collectivism and Marxism is getting stronger and stronger here, like a cancer growing in Massachusetts. Now, let me just deal with Mamdani and home ownership, and then I promise I'm going to get to Massachusetts. Who the hell is Sia Weaver? Who the hell is Zoran Mamdani, Marxist Mamdani? Now you're going to tell me I don't own my own home? Now you're going to tell me that suddenly if I want to buy, say, I don't know, a duplex or a triplex, that tenants don't have to pay me rent? Or I have to open up my home? By the way, if you ever saw the movie Dr. Zhivago, that's what happens. That's what happened under the Russian Revolution. The state confiscated the homes of people and then forced them to take in so-called tenants who lived in their homes rent-free. What is amazing is that Mamdani and this clown, Sia Weaver, by the way, she's 37 years old. She's 37, not 17. This is what brainwashing and Marxist indoctrination looks like. She's, by the way, like many communists, like Mamdani himself, she is a child of privilege, this Sia Weaver. She went to the most elite schools in New York. Her mother owns a $1.6 million mansion in Tennessee. When confronted by reporters, well, what about your mother? She lives in a $1.6 million mansion. Should her home be confiscated? Should she lose the ability to live in her home? Or does she have to open it up to 10, 12, 15, 20 people? You know what she did? You can look it up. Please don't take my word for it. She cried. The woman, a grown woman, she cried. She started bawling her eyes out. How dare you criticize me? Like a pathetic little snowflake. Oh no, you're criticizing me. I just mean to do well. It's just that private property is so bad and home ownership is so bad and rent is so high. And I just thought if you just let the government run it, it's all good. No, don't talk about my mommy. And the woman ran off into her own apartment. She couldn't face the press corps. This is the kind of people Mamdani's staffing his administration with. It's as if the last 100 years never happened. It's as if we haven't tried this experiment over and over and over. Did the Russian Revolution teach us nothing? Did Lenin and Stalin teach us nothing? Did Castro's regime teach us nothing? Did the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot in Cambodia teach us nothing? Did Venezuela teach us nothing? Did communist China teach us nothing? You know what happens everywhere in the world? Private property has been abolished. People get slaughtered by the millions. The state becomes all-powerful. There are no checks and balances on the all-powerful state. Human beings get kicked around. You take away the right to property, you take away the right to life and liberty. They're inextricably linked. You collectivize home ownership. You know what happens? You get less homes, less apartments. You get housing shortages. You have people living in misery and squalor. Here, look at Caracas. They collectivized home ownership. How do you think it worked out for the Venezuelans? How do you think it worked out for the Russians? 3, 4, 5 families packed into an apartment. That's living? That's your socialist utopia, you idiot? Stupid? C.O. Weaver? Mamdani? And I'm looking at this and I'm like, with the disaster of communism and collectivism of the last 100 years, over 100 million people dead and counting, untold poverty and misery. And you want to repeat this experiment again in, of all places, the United States, and in all places in America, New York freaking city? This was supposed to be the citadel of capitalism? Would it kill you to read a history book? One, just one. This is now the Democratic Party. By the way, Mamdani, when he was at his inauguration, you know who swore him in? Bernie Sanders. And by the way, he was sworn in on the Quran. Not the Bible, the Quran. AOC backs his plan to abolish private property and home ownership. Elizabeth Warren backs his plan. Bernie backs his plan. Increasingly, the National Democratic Party backs his plan. Tampon Tim Walz backs his plan. If no one else has the guts to say it, I'm going to say it. Marxism is on the march. Here in America, they're on the streets. They're in political office. They're in major cities. And the Democratic Party in front of our eyes is morphing into a full-blown communist party. No wonder they oppose the overthrow of Maduro. No wonder they oppose the overthrow of Chavismo, as they call it, Chavez, in Venezuela. Mamdani refers to Maduro, don't take my word for it, listen to him, as his comrade. He's Comrade Maduro. The way Castro was Comrade Castro. The way Xi Jinping, the strongman, the communist strongman of China, is Comrade Xi. He's my comrade. He's my brother. And these crazy moonbats in New York City voted for this? Now, I don't want you to take my word. I want you to look it up because every historian has pointed this out. But I want you to I want you to judge it for yourself. Don't look at Soviet Russia. Look at Mao's China. Look at Castro's Cuba. I could give you example. Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge. Never before was communism voted in. It was always brought in through the barrel of a gun. Whether it was the Red Army, whether it was through, say, Eastern Europe, a military occupation by the rampaging victorious Russians, okay, whatever it may be, it was never voted in. Or it was like a revolution like Castro, who claimed to be for land reform and for the peasant and the farmer, and he was hiding his true communist colors, and then once he seized power, then he imposed communism against the will of the people. What I'm saying is, never before did people actually vote for communism. New Yorkers just voted for communism. Here in Massachusetts, and I want you to hear this at 9:30. You have to hear this at 9:30 because you're not going to believe what they have in store for us. The Democrats and the moonbats in this state are now voting for collectivism and communism. The government of Massachusetts, Healy and the Democrats, are going to tell me how many miles I can drive in my own car? How many miles you can drive in your own car? You mean you own my car? You own my body? You own how much I can travel on my free time? Hey, 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 hey. Hey, this is what happens when you have one-party rule. And this, again, no checks and balances, no opposition. And so, as I said, I'm going to talk to it in much greater detail, but I've been going on X, sounding the alarm bell. S-2246. Okay, that's the name of the bill. The name of the bill is the Freedom to Move Act. And the bill itself is S-2246. It is moving through the state Senate. It has full Democrat support. Governor Healy is now vowing to sign it. Because remember now, Mamdani is pushing the whole party to the left. Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, it's their party. So now the moonbats have to keep up. They're being pushed more and more to get more radical. And so what this bill does is it aims to reduce the miles that residents in Massachusetts can drive in their own personal vehicles. That's the goal. The goal is to force you, or to eventually compel you, let me be more precise, to drive less and less and less, whether it's your SUV, your Jeep, your car, your own personal vehicle. And why? Because they have certain mandates to hit climate change goals. It's all part of their net zero program by 2050. And so they've had these climate change mandates and benchmarks and targets. And so they have to get people to drive less. And so their plan now is, I kid you not, this is across the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Now, I live out on the border with Rhode Island. As you know, I'm out in the sticks, okay? Affectionately, it's an exurb. It's not a stick, but it's not, it's not the boonies, but it's an exurb. Okay, I'm like about 10 minutes from the Rhode Island border. It's a long commute for me to come into. I'm not complaining. I'm just explaining. How am I going to reduce the miles that I can drive? I've got to come into Medford every day to do the show. You've got people that live in other parts of Massachusetts, many that live in southern New Hampshire. They got to drive all the way down to Boston to work. So what? I'm going to take what? A bus at 3 o'clock in the morning? There is no bus. What do you want me to take? The subway? The metro? The T, as they call it? There is no T at 3 in the morning. What do we do? Bike? What do you want to do? Hitchhike? Walk? Run? And then, so what they're going to try to come back is and say, okay, well, I guess if you really have to drive your car to work, but that's it. You've got your limit. You've hit your limit. Well, I got to shop on the weekend for my family. No. They want to force as many people onto public transportation, to take buses, to take the T. Why do you think they've built all these bike lanes? It's like in communist China. They want us all pedaling a bike. Which, by the way, everything they do, they destroy. Because notice, the more bike lanes they produce, think about it, the more traffic, the more congestion, the more backed up traffic is. What do you think is happening? A, it's causing delays. It's really an inconvenience for people. But cars are just idling on the road now. It used to take you a few minutes to go through a street. Now it takes you 20 minutes. It's even leading to more pollution, more congestion. It's completely counterproductive. But let that go. Now, my ultimate point is this. And on this bedrock principle, I stand. And I can do no other. To hold it Healy and the Democrats and the communist thugs that have now infiltrated the Democratic Party. Mind your own business. It's my car. If I want to drive it all day, all night, that's my choice. That's not your choice. You don't have the right to tell me how many miles I can drive in my car. In about 11 minutes, Paul Craney from Mass Fiscal Alliance will be joining us to discuss this very disturbing bill, S-2246, the Freedom to Move Act, that is making its way through the state legislature. Governor Healy has vowed to sign it, and it aims to reduce the miles that we can drive in our own personal cars. So we'll be having that discussion in about 10 minutes. 617-266-6868. Okay, let's go to Tony in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Jeff, you've been speaking my language here. I mean, I've been fighting communism for years. I would urge everybody to look up and read the 12 planks of communism. Now, I'm going to tell you how this is going to work with the vehicles. You may say you own your vehicle. You go in, you pay cash for your vehicle, they give you a receipt, but who owns the title? The state owns the title. What the state sends you is what's legally called a color of title. Now, you can look this up. According to our Constitution, the only thing they can regulate is commerce. Go to Black's Law Dictionary. Look up what a motor vehicle is. A motor vehicle is defined as a vehicle engaged in commerce. So you're not driving your car, you're driving a motor vehicle engaged in commerce. What is an operator? You get a ticket, it says the operator. Look it up. An operator is a person engaged in commerce. So you're not a person driving your vehicle. Driving your automobile. You're an operator of a motor vehicle. Therefore, you can be regulated. And that's what they're going on. They can do it legally because you don't have a right to travel. Because commerce can be regulated. That's how they did it. They did it years ago. And that's why you have license plates and inspections and excise taxes. And the one other thing I was going to say is the one thing that's missing from New York and Mandami is the shock troops that are going to enforce these things. And look at these protesters in Minnesota. What are they saying now? We need to be armed. We need to be armed against ICE. And it's the beginning. And one of these days, they're going to shoot an ICE officer. And that's what they're heading to. I'd love to hear what your feeling is, Jim.
I wish I could disagree with you. I really do, but I can't. Look, I think it's obvious. All they need now is their KGB or their secret police to enforce these draconian policies. You're right. That's the only thing missing. Now, look, I'm going to get into the details of S-2246 with Paul. in about 7 minutes. So now this is how they're getting the camel's nose into the tent. It's voluntary. This is how they always start these things. So they're not going to force you to drive less. It's not coercion. No. They're setting a framework, benchmarks, goals for the entire state, and then individual goals for you as the driver. But that's only voluntary. You don't have to comply. But that's how they get you. It's like boiling a frog. It sets the precedent. And the precedent is, well, now we have certain targets that we have to hit. And as we get closer and closer to the day, to the year 2050, well, we're not hitting our targets. So now we're going to have to start maybe coercing people, fining people, penalizing people, taxing people. The more you drive, the more you pay a higher tax, excise tax, or the more you're going to pay in penalties or fines. That's how it begins. And before you know it, you don't, as you put it, you don't own your car. The state owns your car, effectively, and they own you. Now, what I find incredible, Tony, is it's our taxes that pay for the roads. It's our taxes that pay their salaries. And yet they're going to tell us how many miles we can drive on the roads that we pay for from so-called public servants who are supposed to work for us. Tony, look, apparently this law that they're trying to ram through is based on laws that have been passed in Minnesota under Tampon Tim and Colorado, which is another moonbat state. And the Democrats want this nationally. So they want to try it out in blue states like Minnesota, like Colorado, now Massachusetts. California's got another bill very similar. It's working its way through the state legislature there. And then they want to apply it across the entire country. And in the end, they want to take our home. They want to take our property. They want to take our car. They want to take away our freedom. And that's going to be the battle, I believe, for the next 10, 15 years. Are we a society based on individualism and individual rights? Or are we a society based on collectivism and the all-powerful state, leading us to a Marxist or green communist revolution? And the battle lines are now being drawn. And all I'm trying to do now is awaken the American people. This bill must be defeated. Period. Full stop. Because once you establish the precedent, then they're just going to boil us like a frog, bit by bit by bit. And so, Tony, you're not 100, you're 1,000% correct. Tony, thank you very much for that call. As always, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you, does the government have the right to tell us how many miles we can drive in our own cars or our own vehicles? Do they have the right to reduce how many miles we can drive in the name of fighting climate change and meeting their so-called climate change targets or benchmarks, these mandates? I say, mind your own business. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Okay, joining us now is Paul Craney from Mass Fiscal Alliance. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the Kuhner Report. How are you?
Good morning, Jeff, and thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about this really awful piece of legislation making its way through the State House.
So for the listeners now tuning in, the Freedom to Move Act, S-2246, it's moving through the state legislature, as you put it. Governor Healy says she will sign it, put it on her desk, she will sign it. So why is it so bad? Why are you so against it?
It is so bad for the simple reason government wants to restrict how many miles you can drive in your vehicle. And that should just send a chilling message to everyone listening. But then the other question that, people are left with is like, why are they doing this? Why are they proposing this? This sounds absolutely bonkers, and it surely is. The reason why they're proposing this is because a few years ago, the Massachusetts legislature and the governor signed into law a net zero by 2050 mandate. It's a climate mandate. It basically says that Massachusetts and New England has to be net zero by 2050. And in order to achieve that unrealistic mandate, they have to change people's behavior. And there's a series of mandates that get put into effect along the way. And what Senator Cynthia Cream is proposing is just one part of the net zero by 2050 mandate. It's how do you deal with people driving? How do you restrict their mobility? How do you get them out of their vehicle and into a bus or into a train or on a bike or start walking? So that's why this state senator is proposing it. That's why this legislature is open to this. But for practicality's sake, for your audience, what they want to do is they want to be able to monitor how much, how often you drive, where you're driving, obviously, and how many miles, and then begin the process of just pure restriction. And my guess is how they would do that is when you register your vehicle every year. They'll just track the mileage that you use, and eventually they'll start putting the screws on you so that you can't drive as much as we're used to. Now, I will say, Jeff, when Senator Cynthia Cream proposed this bill last year and talked about it in front of the legislative hearing for her bill, I don't think she was aware that we were watching and we were listening. And we took her totally absurd testimony and we put it on social media as a video, and the thing completely blew up. Since then, Senator Cream has backtracked a lot. She's completely denying at this point now that she wants to restrict people's mobility. Instead, she's saying, we're just trying to enhance public transportation. But in the bill, they don't define how they're going to restrict your mobility. But we all know that's where this is leading to, because it's, again, a part of the net zero by 2050 mandate. They need to do things like this to achieve this unrealistic mandate. So the senator is completely backtracking. This has made national news. And despite all this, the Massachusetts State Senate is still quietly moving this bill through. And the most recent development is that it moved through the committee process. It hasn't gone up for a vote yet. I am asking people that care about this to have their voice heard. We certainly have. We've shamed the state senator on her outrageous idea. We've called for the repeal of the net zero by 2050 mandate. That's the only way to make this kind of stuff go away, because even if we stop Senator Cream's really bad idea, they're going to do something similar because they have to for that net zero mandate. But on our website, massfiscal.org, you could take a quick call to action at massfiscal.org and send an email into your state senator, your state rep, and to the governor saying, we oppose, you oppose this bill, you oppose this idea. And that's how you can have your voice heard very quickly, by sending a quick email into the State House. And we lay that all out for your audience at massfiscal.org. It really takes like a minute or two. You just put in your name, your address, and your email, and you press OK, and then you'll see the email that gets sent to the State House. But they need to feel this pressure. They need to feel this pressure on this bill and also the net zero mandate by 2050. It's unrealistic. If they actually try to implement it into law, it's going to create a tremendous economic pain to people. And I think people are starting to wake up to this fact now. Oh, and just, I can only add to what you're saying. It's a fundamental assault on their individual freedoms and our individual liberties. This is collectivism. This is Marxism. That's what this is. And no, Jeff, you're so right. It's the red meeting the green, if you know what I mean. It's the Marxists meeting the climate lobby together. It's control in the name of. You nailed it. Just so that everybody listening, it is S2246. Again, the name of the bill, S2246, the Freedom to Move Act. Paul, I agree with you on this, not 100, but 1,000%. And you kind of anticipated my question, but let me just play devil's advocate, because the supporters of the bill say Paul Craney is an alarmist, Jeff Kuhner is an alarmist, everybody who opposes this is hysteria. This will not, they will not use this to reduce or curb the miles that we can drive in our vehicle.
This is a voluntary initiative. No one's going to be forced to do anything. These are just targets, benchmarks. They want to encourage people to use public transportation, buses, trains, the T, bicycling, walking, whatever. But that, no, there is no coercive mechanism. They're not going to do anything to force people to drive less. Your answer is?
Well, it's part of the net zero climate mandate by 2050. Of course it's coercion. It has to be. There is a carrot and a stick approach to all this, but when the carrot is exhausted, that's when they use the stick. And we are now all starting to experience this in our daily lives. We see it with our energy bills every month. They go up, seems like every winter, 30%. That's not by accident. It's by design. They want us off of fossil fuel. They want us out of our vehicles into EV vehicles. They want us out of our vehicles and into walking and bicycling more. And the only way they're able to achieve this massive change in behavior is with a stick. And if you still don't believe me with all this, then let me just remind your audience that a few years ago, the climate czar under Governor Charlie Baker was famously caught on video bragging to the audience it was a Zoom audience in Vermont. This is the climate czar in Massachusetts government, and he was bragging about how there's no more big polluters in Massachusetts. We have to go after the old lady that lives across the street. We have to go over people like you and I. We have to put the screws on people. This is what they say quietly. This one gentleman said out loud, and he was fired, but his words were still true. That's what the climate agenda is about. It's about total control. And it is the commie red meeting the climate green, and they're joining forces. So it's not just important that we stop this bill, because once this is stopped, they'll just come out with something just like it. They have to. But what the ultimate prize in all of this is, we have to repeal the net zero by 2050 mandate. That is the only way that this all stops. If we don't repeal that net zero by 2050 mandate, environmental lobby groups, climate lobby groups will just continue to sue the state of Massachusetts and say you're not meeting your net zero mandate, and the state will be compelled to do more mandates. And unless that overall mandate is repealed and simply made into a goal or just nothing at all, we will continue to live in the state of mandates, carrots and sticks along the way. So it's good that...
Paul, we've only got about a minute left. Just very quick. I live almost near the Rhode Island border in the southern part of the state. I have to come into Boston, Medford, to be exact, to do my show. How can they possibly, and I come in very early in the morning, 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning to do the morning show. How can they force me to reduce the amount of miles I drive? Like, I mean, what? There's no buses at 3 in the morning. There's no trains at 3 in the morning. So what? Ultimately, are they going to try to force me to live closer to the city? Is that going to be the long-term plan?
Yeah, the long-term plan is how they do this. Most likely would be, let's just say you get like 12,000 miles that you can drive a year. If you drive to 15,000 miles, then you have to pay, I don't know, $100 per mile. I'm just making that up. But you get the point. They'll start to give you limits for how many miles you could drive a year, and if you surpass that, you're going to have to pay big fees or fines, whatever you want to call it, your penance for the climate lobby. That's how they're going to do this. So they're going to change behavior with the stick approach. That's what this bill would essentially allow the state to start to do.
Incredible. Incredible. Paul, we're up against it. Listen, dynamite job. Go to Paul, what's the website again? Is it I'll give it on the other side. Okay, I promise. Okay, the website again is massfiscal.org. massfiscal.org. And the bill is S-2246, also known by the Freedom to Move Act. So if you want to get involved or contact your state rep or your state senator, go to massfiscal.org, Mass Fiscal Alliance. Paul Craney, I want to thank them again for A, coming on, and B, doing just absolutely yeoman's work. All right, DJ in Attleboro. Thanks for holding, DJ, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. So they're already halfway there to tracking us. So I'm a highway contractor. I've worked on almost every highway east of 495. So if you ever drive down the road and you see the sign that says so many minutes to get to X amount of point, which is you see a green sign with like a little light up number on it that represents the minutes. That is tracked. You'll see the silver boxes on the side of the highway. There are wires inside the ground, like on the pike. And what they do is they track a transponder that, like the one the pike gives you to charge you for a toll. They track all of those in the cars. And from that point, all they have to do is when you register your car, you got to register this, and every highway already has that already installed.
You know, it's similar, DJ, it's similar to what somebody texted me maybe 10 minutes ago saying he's got a relative or I think a friend. Anyway, he's got someone he knows in California, and he says they're using a very similar system there, that they're tracking your car by, on the road, monitoring how many, miles you drive on the road with these checkpoints or these transponders. And soon they're going to start enforcing paying by the mile. That's, I think, ultimately what their goal is going to be, that every mile you drive, they're going to start off with like a cent or 2 cents or 5 cents. And then they're just going to keep racking it up and racking it up and racking it up to the point that it makes it too expensive for you to drive. So either you move or you just don't drive anymore. DJ, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all, Jeff. And it's a very scary thought because these were already implemented back probably about over the past 10 to 15 years. That's when those signs started going up. And if they put it under the guise of having those signs up, that's kind of like, they were backdooring the system before it even was implemented.
DJ, I'm going to do everything I can to sink the bill. And I think Paul is right, Paul Craney. The whole net zero by 2050, we've got to defeat that as well, because they're just going to keep coming at us with bill after bill. But we've got to let them know loud and clear, mind your own business. It's our car, our vehicles. You don't tell us how or how many miles we can drive in our own car. I mean, this is communism. Enough is enough. DJ, thank you so much for that call. You're dead on. Kate in Holbrook. Thanks for holding, Kate, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. You just mentioned communism. This is straight exactly what communism China does to their citizens. Their license plates, they're only allowed to, if your plate ends with a 0 or a 1, you're only allowed to drive, say, Mondays and Thursdays. If your plate ends with a 3 or a 2, you're only allowed to drive, Fridays and Saturdays. This is the first step in that direction. Absolutely.
Kate, do you think, I know it's a left-wing state, I know it's a blue state, but do you think even the liberals and the Democrats, will they accept this, or are they going to rebel? Or do they like being told how many miles they can drive and pay even more for the privilege of driving?
I hope not. I think your far lefties here in the state absolutely will be very much, wanting this. But I think for your average Democrat, I hope that they can see through this and understand that this is just taking away your civil liberties and, telling you when and where you can drive is, what's next if they can tell you that?
Well, if you can own your house. That's where Mamdani is taking that's where Mamdani's taking the Democratic Party. Whether you can own property, whether you can own a house. Kate, really, I used to say it in jest. Now it's half jest. Soon they're going to tell you how to have sex with your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Like that's the only thing left. Kate, thank you so much for that call. Let me squeeze one more in. Mike, do I have time? Ryan in Northbridge. Ryan, I hate to do this to you. I've got 1 minute left in the show. Go.
Jeff, thank you very much. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I appreciate that. I didn't know if I was going to get snuck in, but I will speed up the process. I talked pretty quick. So I work for Mass Department of Transportation and stuff like that, and we have, I just look at it as, we have our field office 3 miles away from the job, and our duty is to inspect the roads and stuff like that in this state, and to try to take that back. They give you peanuts back in return and stuff like that. But to have them, I got to go pick up my daughters that are an hour away. I separated from the mother of my children, and I try to be the best father I can, and to cap a mileage thing.
Well, you're dead on. I mean, Ryan, look, everyone will have something similar. I mean, a different circumstance, but everybody's got reasons why they need to drive. And as you're saying, to pick up my daughters and spend time with my children, I got to drive an hour.